Hello, everyone. It's your friend the Nightwalker, and I'm back with another episode of Creepy Tales and Urban Legends. Now, this is going to be a little bit of an unorthodox video, I have to admit, but this is something that it seems like go back 20 years or more or something. This is something that started off as a joke, but it seems like over time it's actually kind of worked its way into becoming an urban legend. And I just want to let it be known from the get-go. I'm not trying to be offensive in any way. Okay? I'm just simply stating facts here. Okay. Now, the joke started off that, usually African Americans, the black guy is usually always the first to die in a horror movie. And over time, at first everybody just, yeah, it kind of seems that way, huh? But yeah, that's not really true. But over time, this joke started to build momentum. And then it's gotten to the point where, if you're a horror fan like me, you actually get asked that question, and the question is asked with real sincerity. People who are not horror fans, people who they don't watch horror movies or anything like that, you know if they know that you do, they will come and ask you, is that actually true? Does the black guy usually always die? Is he usually always the first victim to go in a horror movie and things like that? And people who don't like horror movies to begin with, they'll just automatically assume that and believe it anyway, without ever actually watching a single movie. So now we're going to answer that question. Does the black guy always die in every horror movie? No. Is the black guy the first one to die in every horror movie? No. Okay. As a matter of fact, there are quite a few movies, horror films, or movies with horror elements that actually have African American characters in them, male leads or male supporting leads, and they actually survive at the end of the movie. And then we're not gonna go through every one of them because there's way too many. But but we're gonna go through some, and we're gonna talk about a few of them. So just to give you an idea. So in case if you're a horror fan, and if anybody ever comes up to you and says, I heard this that the black guy is always the first to die in every horror movie. Is that true? Direct them to this video, because we're going to show proof that it's not always true. No. So anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. Now, one of the first movies we're going to talk about, it's more of a comedy, but it does have horror elements, obviously, and it's one of the most, obvious choices. We're going to talk about Ghostbusters 1 and 2. First Ghostbusters, believe, came back in 1984. I believe Ghostbusters 2, 1989. I believe, I could be wrong on the dates, but, you do have the character of Winston Zeddemore, who's one of the main Ghostbusters, and he's African American. And of course, we all know the story of Ghostbusters. These scientists, they figure out a way to learn to catch ghosts and trap them. And it turns out, just as they learn how to do this, it turns out that ghost sightings and ghostly encounters are on the rise, and things are getting worse and progressively worse. And so these four heroes step up and save the day. They go and take care of the ghosts and try to keep them from hurting anybody else. So you have the main, one of your main characters there, Winston Zeddemore, played by Ernie Hudson, who also, too, quick fact, he was in the movie The Crow. Now, The Crow has horror elements based on a graphic novel, but he lives in that movie as well. But anyway, but yeah, this is one good example, and you can even mention The Crow if you want to bring that into it, being that, The Crow does have horrific elements to it. But this is a movie that, you can honestly say, does the black guy die in every horror movie? No, as a matter of fact, he's one of the main characters. He's one of the main heroes. So we have that one. Okay, this one here I thought was pretty interesting. This is a movie from 1942. Okay, we have King of the Zombies. Okay, a horror film from 1942. And this movie, you can find it on any budget DVD out there, pretty much just about anything, any like those 50 movie packs, or, anything put out by like Mill Creek or Echo Bridge or something like that. Usually it's one of those public domain movies. So getting a hold of this movie on DVD is not hard. And I'm pretty sure you probably watch it for free on YouTube and other places as well. But, the story is pretty basic. You have three men. Two of them are white. One is African American. They're flying in a plane. Their plane goes down. They wind up on an island. And it turns out that the island has a voodoo priest, who is conducting rituals and things like that, and turning, people on the island, mainly African American, into zombies and stuff, and getting them to do his bidding and things like that. But one of your main characters is African American. Not only does he survive at the end of the movie, but he's one of the main characters. A good portion of the movie follows his character around, and he's one of the heroes as well at the end of the film. So I think that's interesting. I even reviewed this movie for the Body Bags channel a while back because I just thought that was interesting. A horror film from 1942 with one of the leads is African American and he lives at the end of the movie. I just felt like that was something that that was interesting in mentioning. So anyway, so we got two of them. We got a few more examples here. One of the obvious ones being Stephen King's It, the 1990 miniseries. You have Tim Reed's character of Mike Hanlon here. Now, granted, he does get stabbed in the movie, but they get him to the hospital in time and he survives, which that's what happened in the book too. So, but this came out in 1990 miniseries. So that's kind of a problem though too. It's like I've heard actual people say that it wasn't until the late 90s, till after movies like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer started coming out. They said, oh, well, now see, like, I'm not even kidding. I'm not even joking with you on this. I actually heard somebody say that LL Cool J in Halloween H2O was the first time an African-American male lived in a horror film. Well, obviously, because of this movie, that's not the case. And we have many more like that, too. So, just to bring up another example, we have Night of the Demons. Okay? You have, a group of youngsters, well, not youngsters, but like 30-year-old teenagers. They're going to they're basically going to an old funeral home to have a Halloween party. They unleash some demons and all hell breaks loose, and kind of like an Evil Dead sort of thing. But you have this character here, Roger, one of the main characters. He's African American, and at first he comes almost like a coward, but he does gain some inner strength, and he becomes one of the heroes at the end of the movie. And he lives, he lives to live to fight another day. So this is another situation of that, So yeah, another one that's pretty obvious if you think about it is Poltergeist. Steven Spielberg's Poltergeist from, I believe it's 1982. Yeah, 1982. So this is another case of you have the paranormal investigators led by Beatrice Straight, and then Zelda Rubinstein comes in later. But one of your paranormal investigators in the movie is an African-American male, and he gets away pretty much unscathed in this movie. He lives at the end of the movie. He's, he helps out. He's one of the heroes of the film, and, so yeah, great character, positive character. So you have that, especially the fun part where they're, throwing the tennis balls into the, I guess, vortex, if you want to call it that, or alternate dimension or whatever. And like the ball falls through the ceiling into his hand. Kiss my ass, number 2. So anyway, sorry, I'm not trying to be offensive there, but anyway, yeah, that's there you go. That's another movie that you can talk about. Here's another example. This one here, we have Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive. You have the character of Andy, the truck driver, who is played by character actor Frankie Faison. Now, Frankie Faison, unfortunately, does meet a tragic end in another Stephen King movie, The Langoliers, but in this movie, he's one of the main characters. He's a truck driver. He ends up being one of the heroes, and he survives at the end of the movie. He fights. He lives to see another day. And an interesting side note is that Frankie Faison also played in just about every Hannibal Lecter movie there is. He played the orderly Barney in Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, and Red Dragon. And not to mention, too, he played I believe he was the lead of the SWAT team in Manhunter. Or he was the sheriff of the cops or whatever it was. But yeah, so he's been in like 4 of the Lecter movies, and he survived all of them. So just an interesting side note I thought would be, something to mention. But yeah, so he plays the character of Andy, and she, the part's funny where she's like trying to tune the radio. I was like, "You want to bring me a light coffee when we get done jerking on that thing, darling?" So anyway, though, so there's like another example. Like I said, we got a few more. Like I said, there's plenty more to go through, but I think just enough to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So we're going to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay, this one's a little bit tricky. Okay, now in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, you have the character of Kincaid. Now, Kincaid does live at the end of Nightmare on Elm Street 3, only to be killed in the beginning of Nightmare on Elm Street 4. But that being put aside, you also have the character of that's played by Yaphet Kotto in Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, and he's African American. He's one of the lead characters, and he survives. He comes close. He does have an encounter with Freddy, but he is able to actually, make it out alive by the end of the movie. So there's that. So, one, maybe two, if you want to be generous of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, does have that sort of situation where, the black guy lives in the movie. So you got that. Now this here is pretty interesting. We got 3 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies where a black man lives at the end of the movie. You got the original from 1974, and in case you might be confused, remember at the end of the movie when Sally's trying to get away and Leatherface and the hitchhiker are chasing her, and the hitchhiker's cutting her up with the straight razor. The guy driving the semi truck was actually African American, and we see him running off, and so we do believe that he lives, even though in Texas Chainsaw 3D there was like a little deleted scene where he was killed and they had him hanging on a meat hook in the Sawyer's kitchen, which that was stupid because they were right outside the farmhouse, and you see the guy doesn't go anywhere near the farmhouse. He just hauls ass down the road. So you could definitely say that there's an African American character who lives at the end of this movie and survives and actually gives, he's the one who throws the wrench and hits Leatherface in the head where he falls and cuts his leg with the chainsaw. So actually, yeah, it gives Leatherface a good what for. So now we go to another Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. We have Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. You have the character of Benny, played by Ken Faree. And the funny thing was, originally, his character was supposed to die in this movie. And anybody who's watched this movie and watched any of the bonus features on here, you would know that his character was supposed to be killed at the end of the movie. He was supposed to get his head split open by Leatherface's chainsaw. But what ended up happening was, apparently, they did test screenings, and the character of Benny was loved so much, and everybody liked Ken Faree so much, that they decided, piss on this, and they decided they wanted him back for future sequels. So they decided, you know what, we're going to reshoot the ending and he's going to live. And then the funny part is like a lot of people say, yeah, that is definitely, that is kind of hard to swallow. But you know what? Because I love the character so much, hell with it. I'll take it. It's fine with me. It's great that he lives at the end of the movie. And so, everybody accepted it, even though they know it's not really the way it was supposed to end. Everybody's just like, you know what? I'll take it for what it is. Works for me. So, but anyway, that was an interesting idea or an interesting situation that, the character was going to be killed, but then they decided, no, they liked the character too much, reshoot the ending and let him live. So that's pretty interesting. Ken Faree will have I got another example of where that happens for Ken Faree too in just a minute. I think you guys already know which one I'm going to be talking about. But anyway, out of the Chainsaw Massacre movies, the last one we got is Texas Chainsaw 3D, where, now, I mean, granted, I know people are going to be like, oh my God, the boyfriend died, It's like, well, first of all, he wasn't the first character to die. And secondly, he's, the main African American character in the movie is really the sheriff. So even though the boyfriend died, and the boyfriend's kind of a cheating little shit anyway, but you do have the sheriff, and the sheriff is African American, and he does live at the end of the movie. And so even though one dies, still another one lives. So it's not like they all die. But anyway, so there's that. And now we got just a couple more examples. I think you guys already got the point this far. But so anyway, so George Romero made Night of the Living Dead in 1968, and at the end of that movie, he killed everybody. Not just the black guy. He killed everyone in that movie. Everybody dies in that movie. So around 1978, when he decides he's going to make his sequel to Night of the Living Dead, finally, everybody's he started making the movie, and again, this was going to have a similar ending where that all the main characters are going to die. But as they shot the movie, I need to go ahead and tell you, okay, you already know, it's Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead. But as they were shooting the movie, as the movie went further and progressed, they got to where everybody said the same thing. You know, the character of Peter, played again by Ken Faree from Chainsaw Massacre 3, everybody said the same thing. You know, the character is way too likable, you know, and also, too, you got the female lead, Francine, played by Galen Ross. Couldn't at least a couple of them survive? I mean, can't we have a little bit of hope, a little bit of a happy ending here at the end of it? And Romero agreed. He decided, you know what? Yeah, that's actually a good idea. You know what? It wouldn't hurt to have just a little bit of, just a little ray of hope, a little ray of sunshine is not going to hurt. So he, rewrote the ending, and that, Francine and Peter both live, and you think that Peter's going to kill himself, but he manages to get out to the helicopter just in time. But so yeah, but they both live, and go on to fight another day, and so everything's good here. So anyway, so that's another example. And then to go even further, in the next movie that Romero made, or the next zombie movie he made, Day of the Dead, he decided to take it even further, and you got the three characters there. You got John, played by Terry Alexander. You got Sarah, played by Laurie Cardell, and you got Billy. These three end up becoming your main characters, and so he ends up at the end of the movie. All three of them end up, surviving. They all end up, and so yeah. So here's another case of Romero being like, you know what? Yeah, have a little bit of ray of hope, a little ray of sunshine is not going to hurt. So, let some people live. So. But here's another example. And finally, the last one we're going to talk about is we've got a couple of Friday the 13th movies here that need discussing. Now, one of the, in Friday the 13th Part 2, one of the counselors, or one of the young trainees going to be a counselor, is an African American. And, he does not get killed by Jason. He ends up going, they have one last night, the lead counselor, Paul, he tells them, okay, we're all going to have one last big night on the town. Everybody, whoever wants to go can go. And, the young African-American guy, he decides he wants to go. And so, he goes off to party, stays out all night, has a good time, gets drunk and everything else. And he does not end up getting off by Jason. So in Friday the 13th Part 2, you got one. And in another situation, I don't know, some people may not count this, but I go ahead and do. You have the character of Reggie the Reckless in Friday the 13th Part 5. Now, he's a young teenage boy, but, he's male, he's African American, and he's one of the main characters. And you know what? Yeah, his grandfather unfortunately gets killed, but he survives at the end of the movie, and he's one of the ones to help defeat and fight off Jason. So, but at the end of the movie, it's like, he still lives. So anyway, so that's just a few examples. There's many, many, many more. You could talk about the character of Tyler from Child's Play 3, so on. But yeah, you guys get the idea. So that's the thing. Like, and I'm not trying to be offensive in any way. I'm not trying to be controversial in any way or anything like that. I just thought that the only reason I decided to make this video is because I do have people who actually genuinely ask me, is that true? Is that joke about the black man always being the first to die in a horror movie true? You watch all that stuff. Do you know? It's like, no, they don't always die. They're not always the first. Some of them end up being heroes or the main characters or side characters or whatever else. But, no, the overall answer is no, they don't always die in the horror movies. And it would be, to be truthfully honest with you, if that was the case, and it did show that every single time, then yeah, I probably wouldn't even be a fan of these movies as I am. So, but yeah. So anyway, so that's pretty much going to do it. So like I said, if you're a horror movie fan, if somebody comes up and asks you, direct them to this video. I gave plenty enough examples, and we all know what we're talking about here. If you're a horror movie fan, you know what we're talking about. So yeah, that's going to pretty much go ahead and do it. So if anybody took the time to watch this video, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. If I hope you like this video. If you did, and if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe. There'll be weekly videos posted. And until then, this is your pal, the Night Walker. Be careful. You might be out walking around some night, and you never know who you might run into. Maybe even me.